Hey witches, Tiffany here, back on Bewitching.Bemused. Today we are going to be covering a book review of Labor Like a Goddess, a fearless guide to preparing for the 7 gates of transformation in pregnancy and birth by Alexandria Moran and Lauren Mahana. Hopefully I've pronounced both those names right. I'm going to tell you right off the bat that I really loved this book. I tried to have a kind of well-rounded pro section and con section, but that was a little hard for me to do because I really liked this book. Including the appendices and the resources sections, this is a 246-page book. And while yes, this is one that you can get as a paperback or as a PDF, it does have a companion book that has to be purchased separately. That one they currently don't offer, at least at the time that I'm making this, they don't offer an actual hard copy that you can purchase, but you can get the PDF or Kindle format. And that one is meant for whoever is taking up the role of the divine masculine through your process, your whole journey, which we'll kind of go over as we talk about the book. It is called Become a God So She Can Labor Like a Goddess. Now, to be fair, I have not read that one. I'm probably going to ask my husband to read it. I'm not really sure if it's his thing though, so I'm still debating on that one. Likely I will probably get it, skim it. If it seems like it's for him and that it would be useful for him, then I will have him read it. But it's not because I don't think that it's useful. I just think, you know, of course this book is not for everyone's taste, and I'm sure neither is that one. The reason that I say that is because it is very pagan-y, new agey, woo-woo, whatever you want to call it, which I love. I found it very helpful and inspiring, and the use of mythology throughout the book to help parallel your own journey that you'll be going through as the reader, assuming that it's, you know, the expectant mother who's reading. You know, that's just not necessarily for everybody. I do, of course, want to touch on the fact that there are many ways to become a mother, not just being a biological female who gets pregnant and goes through the process of 9 months of pregnancy and then labor and delivery. That is not the only way to become a mother. As this book guides you through that process of transitioning from maiden to mother, you are, with each chapter, the maiden goddess is the character sort of that is kind of going with you on this journey. She's being used as this archetype that you are, who is outlining the journey that everyone might go through in the process of going from maiden to mother, right? And so each step of the way she is going through a gateway, and at each gateway she must make a sacrifice. And so each chapter outlines those sacrifices. This book does use the process of pregnancy, labor, and delivery as the ultimate threshold for that final transition. And this makes sense. The women who wrote this book are doulas. However, in my opinion, I do feel that this book is applicable to a little bit more of a broader audience outside of the biological manner of becoming a mother, because like I said, there are many ways that one can become a mother and need to make that transition from maiden to motherhood. Now, yes, it is very focused on that process of what it feels like to be pregnant, what it feels like to go into labor, what it feels like to deliver a baby. However, I do feel that if you merely use those as examples, sort of reading between the lines, the sentiment is still there. There are other ways to, there are other ways that the same gateways, that the same lessons, the same mythology that is throughout the book could be applied through that process in any other transition into motherhood, whether that's becoming a step parent or adopting. But I also just want to be clear that it is very heavy on the labor and delivery language. So if that's just sort of like, okay, but I'd rather just have a book that's geared towards becoming a step parent, totally, there's nothing wrong with that. You don't have to sit here and try to parse through the language to see what applies to you. I guess I just want to give that general heads up that I do feel like it could apply. But again, that may not be for everybody. However, if the idea of this myth of the following the maiden goddess throughout her journey as she transitions from maiden to motherhood, even hers, it's not, she's literally walking through gateways. She's not physically delivering a baby. So even her actual story is a myth that's told to parallel that process. So I would see how that process could also parallel a different type of process into motherhood. I really hope this is making sense. For example, the first gate focuses on overcoming fear. And yes, it does talk about fear of labor pain and fear of what if something goes wrong during delivery, fear of being accountable for the baby's health while you're pregnant. But of course, becoming a parent, whether in the biological sense or in another manner, is always going to come with some level of fear, whether that's both before you become a parent officially and also after. I feel like the second you become a parent, then your life is just a lot of fear a lot of the time and learning to just live with that. So yes, I would say the gateway of overcoming fear does not just apply to fear of labor pain. While yes, that's the major focus, I do feel that most could read between the lines to look at that aspect of transitioning from maiden to mother and see where it applies to them. However, again, it's not like it's your job to do so. So if that just doesn't really appeal to you, then that's perfectly fine too. So actually getting into the pros and cons, my first pro is that I really loved the structure of the book. Like I said, each chapter is covering a different gateway that the maiden goddess, as well as yourself, must walk through, must make a sacrifice in order to walk through on their journey from transitioning from maiden to mother. I really appreciated the use of story, particularly myth, to explain this process. And again, I like that it didn't directly parallel. You're not seeing the maiden goddess, you know, kicked back on a bed of leaves going through labor. She is literally walking through a forest. You know, she's got a cloak she must give up. She's using a map to guide herself, which she must sacrifice step by step along the way. It's all very poetic for the actual process. And then of course, each section not only breaks down how this applies to your own journey and why it's important for you to process this gate and ways that it might be difficult for you to walk through yourself, but it also then of course provides exercises, meditations, and journaling prompts to assist you with that. And these are things that you can do throughout your whole pregnancy. You can do them more than once. And I found it very helpful and guiding. And those exercises were very, very invaluable for me personally. Another pro is I did mention how they're both experienced doulas. So they have been with many, many women as they walk through these gates and as they go through this transformation process. In addition to that, while you can tell that they do seem a little more biased, I should say, towards having an unmedicated, all-natural birth, they don't seem judgmental or critical of those who choose to, you know, go for the epidural or what have you. They aren't overly strict about trying to tell you what style you should choose, what birthing plan you should choose, or saying that one is better over another. You can just, I mean, in my opinion, I took away from a lot of their language that they do seem to have a preference, but it didn't feel shoved down my throat. It didn't feel judgmental or critical. And ultimately, their final message was the best birthing plan is the one that is the most comfortable, most stress-free, and most empowering to the mother. Like I said, I have worked through pretty much all of the gates so far. I think it is kind of an ongoing process. I don't feel like it's sort of like, all right, I did these journal prompts, I'm done. I think it's like, okay, I started the process of each of the gates with the journal prompts and with the rituals that they suggest. But one thing that I've been doing on a more of a repetitive basis, especially for certain gateways over others, because I do find certain ones, as I'm sure you will too, a little bit more difficult to walk through myself. Some are just a breeze, I can just stroll right through, and other ones are a little bit tougher. But on their website, they do have guided meditations that you can do for each of the gateways, which I love. You guys know I love meditations in general, but I really, really like these guided meditations, and I have found them to be very helpful. Finally, I always have to talk about the back of the book. If there's good stuff in the back of the book, there is a very rich appendix section that has doula tips. It has examples for putting together your birthing plan, your sacred contract, things like that, just essentially to help you get the most out of not only this process, but also the delivery. And then of course, there's also additional resources that do include childbirth education, places where you can go online and find a doula if that's something that you're looking for. Again, they're not super critical about people who don't work with doulas. It's just kind of offered there if you're interested. And then of course they talk about their own personal experiences as doulas, but it doesn't seem like a thing they're trying to shove down your throat. And if you're possibly processing birth trauma, they also provide resources for that. I really like the back of the book. While I haven't started it yet, I'm actually going to use their resources to get more information and learn about hypnobirthing. So that is just my own personal take on it. Now for the very, very brief cons section. Okay, so I mentioned that on their website, which is kind of also like a companion to this book, there are guided meditations for you to use. There were other things referenced in the book that says you can find this on the website, and I went to the website and I could not find the thing. Now, to be fair, I did not email anybody or contact to see if they would send it to me, so it is very possible that they would. I probably should have done that before filming this video. But either way, there was materials that the book said would be on the website and they're not on the website. So whether they're willing to send them to you or not, it just feels like they should be there, but the website's still up, just certain materials have been taken down. The other con is that I will admit some areas do feel rather repetitive, as if they are sort of taking one idea that they just expounded upon, and instead of continuing to expound upon it, they're just more reiterating in different phrasing the exact same message that they already stated. Now, to be fair, I do understand that some people learn and or retain information better if it's explained different ways. And I understand sometimes if something's explained in different terms, it will land better for one person, and then the same concept explained a completely different way lands better for another person. I totally understand that, absolutely. I am actually very guilty of that myself in my videos. Sometimes I'll say the same thing more than once in a different manner, hoping that the message will land for everybody. But in certain sections of the book, it did feel a little more akin to fluffing it up to just sort of stretch out the word count, which I didn't really think was necessary at all. So I will admit that this book probably took me a little bit longer to read than a book normally would, just because some parts did start to drag. The pacing started to drag a little bit, and yes, the good news is, like, you do need to, I would recommend anyway that you do it in order and stop and work through these gateways, but you can also start learning about the next gateway while still processing everything from the previous one. So you don't need to kind of stop and go, in my opinion. That might work best for some people, but not for me. But the real reason that this book took me a hot minute to get through was just some parts felt a little grindy to me. And that could also just be a preference for writing style, and maybe it just wasn't to mine, but maybe you guys will like it. However, overall, I really loved the book. I did warn you that that con section was going to be very, very short, and there it is. To wrap things up, I do highly recommend this book if you are going through that process or about to go through that process from maiden to mother, or if you've already been through that process, but it was difficult for you and you kind of maybe find yourself straddling both sides and having a tough time coming to terms with the aspect of, I don't know, letting the maiden die so you can move on to the mother aspect, right? This might be helpful for you if you find that to be kind of a weird liminal space to be existing in. If you've read this book and you're interested in sharing your thoughts, or if you read it and then you come back to this video interested in sharing your thoughts, please leave those down in the comments below. Whether you agree with me or not, I would just love to hear your guys' takes and opinions on it. If you're looking for more book reviews, you can check out this playlist right here. And if you're looking for a little bit more on witchy motherhood, you can check out this playlist here.